Okay, I'm Douglas Jones from the University of Iowa, and I have to acknowledge the National Science Foundation's accurate money for my presentation here. I wrote about auditing elections in 2004 and published in October. A copy of that paper is available, but of course things have happened since then. And among other things, I've learned more. So I think in summary, I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you. Design for auditability is an old idea. Voting systems designed to be auditable date to the 19th century. Election auditing is an old idea. I'll show you some examples. The problem is we just don't do it. When we do it, we hobble the auditors. And audits can do so much more than we're asking for them here, and I want people not to forget the other things that auditing can do. Here's some quotations. The first proposal for an auditable voting machine, the proposal included this wording: as the votes are counted, they are cast. As the votes are counted as they are cast, the total number can be ascertained rapidly and accurately at the close of the polls, without the necessity of counting by hand the separate ballots. Although this may be done as a check or verification, should it be necessary or desirable. The first direct recording voting system with a voter verifiable paper trail, the patent for that went on to say, in this manner we have a mechanical check on the tickets, while the ticket is also a check on the mechanical register. Well, the word mechanical wasn't there. And it's sort of fun to ask you, when was this written? Is this 20th century or 19th century? And the answer is 19th. The first proposal for an auditable voting machine was made by Jacob Myers in a patent granted in November 19, 1889. He's the man whose patents created AVM Corporation that made all those lever voting machines. Those machines were not auditable. But his first patent, granted on the same day as his second patent, was for an auditable system which nobody ever used. The first precinct count paper ballot system, using mechanical counting of punched card ballots, the patent for that was granted on June 20, 1893. That system was in every way better than the Votomatic. It was a system that I believe would pass current standards, entirely mechanical. Except for handicapped accessibility, but it was an excellent punch card system. The first direct recording mechanical voting machine with a voter verifiable paper trail, the patent for that was filed in 1899. These never went anywhere, but the fact is these are old ideas and they've been in the background of a lot of people's thinking for a long time. Election auditing is an old idea. In Iowa, strangely enough, our county auditors are the people who conduct elections. I think the authority to run elections was granted to the county auditor in part out of an expectation that their expertise at something called auditing might be relevant. In Miami-Dade County, the County Audit and Management Department for a long time has run post-election audits on the election department. And those audits have been wide-ranging and interesting. They were the first studies of the iVotronic to uncover significant problems. The first question they asked is, can we reconcile the different records we got out of the polling place? And the first thing they found is that some of the iVotronics were reporting the wrong serial numbers. And there's a long story there, but it took auditors to ask what was going on. California's 1% rule dates back to the birth of the Votomatic voting machine, and I don't think the 1% post-election audit in California is any surprise, because the Votomatic was invented by a man who was an extraordinary election reformer. He invented that machine largely to create an auditable election system, and it was auditable for all of its faults. As an alternative to the mechanical voting machine, it was a tremendous potential improvement in auditability, and California's rule, I believe, dates to the same era. The trouble is, we just don't audit elections in most states. What if the audit shows a problem? Wouldn't that cause a crisis? Wouldn't that destroy voter confidence? These are traditional objections. Wouldn't it be better just not to know? I mean, that seems to be the conclusion of Florida 2000. And my answer to that is no, these objections really threaten the foundation of democracy. They result from accepting short-term benefit at the expense of tremendous long-term potential risk. When we do auditing, we tend to hobble the auditors, and the post-election audits ordered in Florida's District 13, I think, are a classic example. Before the polls opened on election day, we already had evidence that there was something that some reporters have termed vote flipping going on, where voters would be convinced they'd voted for one candidate on the as they were voting through the ballot, and then they'd see something else on the summary screen. There were numerous reports of this even during the early voting. On election day, there are many more reports of it from different precincts, from different people, with apparently telling very similar stories. The evidence is that the information on the summary screen didn't match the information which the voters had entered. And the audit was very carefully, the ground rules for that audit were very carefully laid out to focus on tabulation, so that the auditors were not in a position to discover whether this phenomenon that has been called vote flipping occurred. And there's plenty of evidence that the problem was a human factors problem, and this extensive Florida post-election audit in District 13 carefully avoided being able to notice human factors problems. It's a delightful example of hobbling the auditors. I'm afraid that the charge we have on the wall up there is potentially hobbling the auditor in some ways also, although I don't disagree that it's a good idea. In fact, I welcome a focus on this for this conference. But we're talking only about hot audits, that is audits done before certification. We're not talking about cold audits. We have to remember that some auditing may want to be cold. There is good reason to want cold audits for some purposes. Post-election, post-certification audits. Manual counts of paper ballots. Is there a role for automation? Randomly selected units, like precincts, why not select individual ballots? There are ways we could do that. Verifying the election result. Well, are there other things auditing can do? I think it's important to remember that we should not limit ourselves as auditors, although we might want to focus on that. Audits could do much more. Post-election audits of what used to be called the audit trails, but are more properly called event logs, ought to have been done since 1990 when voting machines were required to have event logs. Time of first vote cast, time of last vote cast, minimum intervote interval, frequency of poll worker intervention, number of ballots cast on each machine. Those can tell you whether you've bought too many machines for a precinct. There's a lot we could do with automated log analysis on those event logs. So scanners can endorse ballots with serial numbers. That would allow us to set our batch size to 1, randomly selecting individual ballots and comparing them with the interpretation of that ballot, instead of worrying about batch sizes at all. That could, Harry Hursty's Votoscope would allow us to do a tremendous amount there also. So that's about it.